I love that song, don't you? It's great. It's great. So welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. We are very glad to have you with us. We are a welcoming congregation, and we need and appreciate your unique background, differences, beliefs, and lifestyles. If you're one of our longtime members, or if you've just been here a short time, or if you're new for the first time today, we want to welcome you. If you are streaming with us, we want to welcome you no matter where in the world you reside. So welcome to everyone. I have two short announcements. The first is if anyone has a fan that you're not using, no matter what size it is, the people that are being served by Meals on Wheels could use fans. They often live in places without AC and they have very small incomes. So if you have a fan you're not using, if you would give it to Meals on Wheels, they will disperse it for you. So that would be appreciated. Also, we had a meeting here a couple of days ago and somebody left a cell phone with a light blue cover. So if you find that, talk to either me or Susan Vernick. Thank you. Now, take a few moments to meet and greet each other. So please say hi to somebody you've not said hi to before. Go ahead. Okay, can we come back together again? That's what I was thinking. So thank you, and as always, we will have more time to greet each other and to have a cup of coffee after the service. So please hang around and continue your conversations. So we'll now move from our informal greeting of one another to formally begin our service by lighting our chalice. The chalice is our symbol of Unitarian Universalism, of our unity and solidarity, of our openness and inclusion, of our community and individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost. So our opening reflection today was written by Albert Camus at the age of 27. We have not overcome our condition, and yet we know it better. We know that we live in contradiction, and we also know that we must refuse this contradiction and do what is needed to reduce it. Our tasks as human is to find new principles that will calm the infinite anguish of free souls. We must mend what has been torn apart, make justice imaginable again in a world so obviously unjust. Give happiness a meaning once more to peoples poisoned by the misery of the century. Naturally, it is a superhuman task. But superhuman is the term for tasks we take a long time to accomplish. That is all.
As you are willing and able for hymn number 38 in your gray hymnal, Morning Has Broken, hymn 38.
Director of Children and Family Ministry here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. And given that the sermon topic this morning is Don't Ask, Don't Tell, I figured it would be appropriate to read for our time for all ages from this book, Beyond Magenta, Transgender Teens Speak Out. So I will be reading an excerpt from Nat's story. How can I explain myself to someone normal? I'm hard to explain. Usually I don't like to use labels, but if I did, I would say I was genderqueer, gender neutral, or simply queer. Intersex is another way I can identify myself. Intersex means that I am both male and female. It means that I'm neither male nor female. I'm a whole different gender, a third gender, so to speak, part of the transgender umbrella. My birth certificate says I'm female. I guess I looked female when I was born, and I thought you follow whatever's on your birth certificate. But maybe that isn't always true. Everyone always said I was weird, so that's how I considered myself. That's because I was called a freak in middle school, and weird, a weird freak. I was taller and broader than most girls. I looked like a girl, but not exactly like a girl. I acted like a boy, but I wasn't a boy. I want people to use the pronouns them and they when referring to me because I consider myself both male and female. Since most people don't understand that, I just tell them to use he. For years I was she, so it's time to switch. I don't like being a girl. I gave it a turn and it didn't work. I never wanted to be a pretty girl, or even a pretty girl with a touch of boy. I thought of myself as just a kid. I'd sleep, eat breakfast, and go to school, draw something on the chalkboard, go back home, eat, sleep, and repeat. I never thought, oh, I'm pretty today, or, oh, I want to look like a boy today. I don't recall anything like that. I had an image in my head about how my body's supposed to look. I wanted to look androgynous, in between, as if you can't tell. It's a nice image. When people say I look male or female, it messes up my head. I was born in New York City. My mom is Italian and French, and my dad is German, some other European nationality, and some indigenous tribe in Chile. But both are from Chile. At home, we speak English and Spanish. Before preschool, I did everything in my house. I was always alone. Even with my brother living in the same house, in the same room, I was a solitary kid. I used my imagination a lot. I thought of my toys as a way to see what I was thinking. Let's say I had a movie in my head and wanted to see it visually. I guess when you're a kid, you need to see things visually. You need to know it's real. Like to pretend 2 knights fighting, I'd use 2 dolls or 2 action figures to enact what I had imagined. But I wasn't comfortable doing that in front of people. I needed to be alone to do that. I didn't like preschool, but I felt good about being 5. 5 is my favorite number because it reminds me of the time when I wasn't forced to think of myself as a girl or a boy. I was neutral. I didn't have to explain myself. I wasn't depressed, I never got into fights, and I never had arguments with my family. I could go into my room and play with my toys, and no one bothered me. Is it normal for a kid to do that? I don't know. I had short hair, and my mom dressed me in shirts and pants. When I think of myself back then, I looked neutral. Sometimes I had a sweater with a horse on it. I don't remember wearing pink or bows in my hair. Maybe I did when I was a baby, but that doesn't matter. Then, later on, when they started separating kids according to gender, that really started to bug me. I got in trouble a lot. One time when I was 6, I was playing basketball with the guys in the schoolyard. We were in 2 teams, the shirts versus the skins, and I was in the skins. So when all the guys took their shirts off, I took my shirt off too. I didn't think anything of it. One of the recess guards pulled me away and yelled at me, but I didn't know what had happened. I guess when you're born a girl, people assume you know that you're a girl, period. My parents bought me Barbie dolls and my brother action figures. I liked them both, I really did. One side of me wanted the Barbies, but the other side wanted the action figures. Because I couldn't play with action figures, I took off the heads of my Barbie dolls. I pulled them apart. I liked them both, and they forced me to one side like I had to only play with dolls. Because of my high school grades, I only got into one college in the CUNY system in Queens, so I went there. I was fighting with my brother all the time. He always thought he was better than me. We were living under the same roof, but we weren't talking to each other. Whenever the family called me she, I tried to explain, please don't call me that. I'm not she. No, that's what you are, she. End of story, my brother said. He called me a lot of hurtful things. That's it, I'm moving out. I needed to get out of the environment that was making me feel bad about myself, so I decided to live on my own. I now have my own apartment in Queens. It has a kitchen, a small bathroom. It's a studio, basically. I talk to my mom a little bit more now, but I still keep her at arm's length. I don't talk with my father, and I don't talk with my brother at all. Things are sort of going my way. I have my own place, I have a job, I'm taking hormone therapy, and I'm going to a support group at my clinic called Mindfulness. I think it's to help get rid of negative thinking. I only went to one meeting so far, and tomorrow is the second one. It doesn't hurt to try something new. Please join me now in singing our children and youth to the religious education classes with hymn number 413, Go Now in Peace.
In times like these, I personally find it helpful to focus on hope and humor. And as you will hear from the sermon today, there's a lot of hope in it. But I wrote some words to a song to give us a little bit of humor, so I hope you'll enjoy that.
And you will see the words on the screen so that you can follow along with her. And as we do this, we will also do our offering, because we cherish this church and its work. And this is our time to ensure both excellence and the breadth of work we do through our generous financial support. Thanks.
Every morning I wake up wondering, can't help worrying, what will the headlines say? Open Facebook, it's the same old circus, over and over, like the movie Groundhog Day. Got a person in the highest office, sits on his toilet, tweets our reputation away. And what makes it even more depressing is how his spelling is now our national shame. As a UU, I won't judge him on the color of his skin, which by the way is orange. Could he be an alien? Has a distant planet sent him just to mess with our minds? Oh wait, it's just that Russian and his villainous designs. It's a mad world, mad world. Every time there is a closed-door meeting, I can't help thinking, what evil thing has he planned? Is he gonna take away our health care, or grab me somewhere, or sell off our national lands? He's a con man who creates distractions to get reactions. Just look at the NFL, and the only thing that gets me through this is Alec Baldwin and the cast of SNL. Well, I think it's kind of funny, and I think it's kind of sad that somehow North Korea ain't looking so bad. And you might call me silly, but I cannot tell a lie. I miss Barack Obama so much that I could cry. It's a sad world. sad world. Well, it feels like we're repeating history in a different century, reliving the wounds of our past. That's why we need to keep persisting, like Elizabeth Warren and Ginsburg. Oh, please let her last. Every time I travel out of the country, the locals ask me, what the heck is going on? And I tell them that we'll keep resisting, won't stop marching until Trump and Pence are gone. So we're gonna have to protest and we're gonna have to fight for our basic freedoms and for our human rights. And if it all goes nowhere, then we'll really need a plan. Come 2020, well, Bernie's still my man, 'cause it's our world. Sing with me. 'Cause it's our world. 'Cause it's our world. Well, it's our world. Thank you.
Pretty great or what? Thank you, Rachel. So now, each time we gather as a congregation, there are always those who are with us in our hearts and minds and who we want to wrap in our loving care. And today we should keep Linda Breedy in our thoughts. She's getting a pacemaker this Thursday. There are others that we hold in our minds. So in this moment of silence, please, you are welcome to say their names aloud as you are willing. To those named aloud and those remembered in silence, and to all those who are suffering anywhere in our world this hour, we hold in our community of compassion. So relax, get comfortable. And today, during our time of meditation, I would ask you to simply sit in love. Quiet your internal voice and feel yourself being loved. Bathe yourself in love. Open your heart in love. And when you can feel that love, combine it with your breath. Breathe love in and breathe love out. The reading today is from Tim Connor's book, written with Margaret Witt, called Tell, Love, Defiance, and the Military Trial at the Tipping Point for Gay Rights. Just 12 weeks after Judge Ronald Layton ordered the Air Force to reinstate Major Margaret Witt, the long battle ended. Congress repealed the law known as Don't Tell, Don't Ask, opening the door to allow gay and lesbian service members to serve openly without discrimination. President Obama signed the repeal on December 22, 2010, and among those on hand for the historic event were Margaret Witt and her hero and mentor, Greta Kammermeyer. After the president signed the repeal, Greta turned to Margie and proudly said, "I started it, you finished it." The dreamlike day ended with the two of them sitting side by side on the long and happy flight home from Washington, D.C. to Washington State, enjoying the last precious hours of a day that so thoroughly validated some of the deepest and darkest struggle of their lives. It was ironic, perhaps, that Ronald Layton, a federal judge, had given voice to the deeper victory. The law really matters to a society that values human dignity and equal opportunity. And he had said so, as well as anyone could, in the opinion he wrote in his cabin up at Mount Rainier. And still, in a voice trembling with a deeper truth, he had finished by saying that love matters more than law.
Waiting up for me that I call my own. Through the dark, through the door, through where no one's been before, but it feels like home. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say I've lost my mind. I don't care if they call me crazy. We can live in a world that we design. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me away. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. For a million dreams for the world we're gonna make. There's a house we can build, every room inside is filled, things from far away. Special things I compile, each one there to make you smile on a rainy day. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say you lost our minds. I don't care if they call me crazy. Run away to a world that we design. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me away.
am very pleased and proud and honored to be able to introduce our guest speaker. Tim Connor is a person who has driven all of his life, who's been driven all of his life to change things that he knew were wrong. He is a national award-winning journalist, photographer, and activist, and he's based here in Spokane. He was born in Hanford, and his relationship with our minister, Bill Huff, made him an environmental activist, as he felt that the nuclear facility there was a moral blight on our community. So it's only fitting that he is perhaps best known for his multi-year investigations and congressional testimony into the wide-reaching safety and environmental hazards at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation. He is also known for his award-winning online broadcast investigation into something pretty close to home here, the underpinnings of the Spokane River Park Square public-private partnership. Some of you may remember that. The River Park Square investigation formed the basis for a successful securities fraud suit against the city of Spokane and other parties. He has also been honored by the Washington State Bar Association with its Excellence in Legal Journalism Award in 2011. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Catherine. Well, this is hard to follow. What can I possibly say? A little housekeeping first. I did bring some books. I brought them from Auntie's, so if you haven't read Tell and you would like to leave here with a copy, there are about a half dozen left. They're $30. I don't take credit cards, so if you've got $30 cash or you want to make out a $30 check to Auntie's, I'll be glad to take that from you, and you can leave with a book. The other is just to underscore what an honor and a pleasure it is to be here and see so many faces I know and old friends, and some great memories of hanging out with Unitarians and doing good things like the work at Hanford. Just on the clarification of the Hanford thing, the moral blight part is, those are words I chose, that has to do with the plutonium production facilities at Hanford, which we were fortunate enough to shut down. I have mixed feelings about nuclear power, but that's what that was in reference to. So I thought it would make sense for those of you that may only be partly familiar, if at all, with Margie's story, to summarize it. The first thing I should say is she was invited to be here today. Regrettably, she moved to Portland shortly after we finished the book. So getting that has really complicated her life, especially for speaking engagements in Spokane. So, but believe me, she regards the Unitarians in Spokane as near and dear for not just the cause of gay and lesbian rights, but for all the good work that the congregation has been involved with over the years. So I want to tell you a little bit about my friend Margie Witt. She is and her family are very well known in Tacoma, which is where she grew up. She went to high school and college there at PLU. She was a stellar athlete, among other things. Her parents were both teachers. Her dad was a World War II vet. All-American story. She decided when she finished at PLU that she would be a nurse and join the Air Force as a nurse. Well, actually, she started work in civilian life as a nurse and then decided to go into the Air Force to pursue a nursing career, which in short order turned into a career as a flight nurse. She began being one of those people that worked in combat evacuation, getting America's wounded off the battlefield to hospitals back in Germany and the United States. And that is what she had been doing. She had a long career as a flight nurse. She actually had come off active duty and gone into the Air Force Reserves at McCord Air Force Base in Tacoma. She was living in Spokane at the time because she had resettled here to pursue a degree in physical therapy through Eastern Washington University. So she had a life here, she had a life at McCord, she had a life around the world as a flight nurse. And then one day, a very angry husband of the woman that she had begun seeing reported her to, he was the chief of staff of the Air Force, and outed her. And in a matter of minutes, she learned that her life had changed. She was summoned to the commander's office at her unit in McCord. A JAG in a uniform, Judge Adjutant General, told her basically she had two choices. She could resign on the spot, or she could fight the law that was going to expel her, which was known as Don't Ask, Don't Tell, a legacy of the Clinton presidency. Well, interestingly enough, there have been thousands expelled under Don't Ask, Don't Tell by that time that day arrived, I think close to 10,000. And she was in line to be the next. Nobody had ever fought Don't Ask, Don't Tell and prevailed. She decided pretty much on the spot that she would like to be the first. And she did. I mean, she will go down in history as the only U.S. service member to challenge that law and prevail in federal court with an order to be reinstated. So that's the Margie Witt story in a nutshell. Only her being here could effectively communicate the charisma and humor that so endeared her to her unit at McCord. Instead, you're stuck just with my say-so. And it's just been a pleasure being with her. We did a book tour last fall after the book came out, and it was just great getting a chance to hang out with her without interviewing her again, which I had to do a lot to do the book. I'm going to talk about the law in the book, which is a tricky dive. It will put some of you to sleep, inevitably. I will try to make the best of that. My first speaking engagement as a 21-year-old in front of I think it was a Kiwanis group. Somebody threw their head back and just started snoring 10 feet away from me. And that wasn't very pleasant, but I think I've moved beyond it. But let me talk about how this case found me, because I think you'll relate to the experience, because I think you were sharing my seat. My seat was at the Center for Justice, where I was a client for many years doing the River Park Square thing and so forth. And they'd hire me to write about cases, but in this, when I heard about the Witt case, it just angered me. It reminded me of the Kammermeyer case from a decade and a half earlier. Which was the case where Greta Kammermeyer was the head of the nursing for the Washington National Guard. She had a Bronze Star from her service in Vietnam, where she served in the front lines in field hospitals. She's in line for a promotion. She goes into a security interview and tells the truth that she's a lesbian. And she's gone like that in a heartbeat. She's out of the military. And I was one of many Northwesterners who were old enough to feel great umbrage that happened to her. And so Margie's case was a refrain of that for me. And I remember sitting in my office just feeling just really angry and just feeling ashamed that, now granted, parenthetically, by that time there's a lot going on in our lives in the world that make us feel not so great about being Americans. I mean, there was a war entered under false pretenses and so forth. But the idea that we're at war, that we've got wounded combat coming back, we don't have enough flight nurses, and we're going to remove a Margie Witt from her unit just because she's gay, was deeply upsetting. It really made me feel lousy to be an American that day. So I started writing about her story, and little did I know, it became a great story with a great happy ending, with a federal judge appointed by George W. Bush tearing up and leaving the bench in the fall of 2010. Just riveting. I mean, I remember the chills going down my back that day, just feeling validated and vindicated as an American. My son asked me just 2 weeks ago over lunch, what gives you hope? And he looked at me like, don't give me a BS answer. Tell me what gives you hope. And hope are stories like this one, where people who are visited by some of the worst days of their life, whether you're Nelson Mandela going to Robben Island or Margie Witt being told you're not going to be able to serve with these people that you love, with whom you're in business to save lives with, you're going to have to leave. And for her to pick that up and fight that, I mean, I've been involved in litigation for years. She was involved for 6 years. Her life and her wife's life, Lori Johnson's wife, on trial. simply because she wanted to do her job. She wanted to be reunited with the people that she worked with to save lives. Well, that's an inspiring story, and I love it. And I hope that love comes through in the book. I mean, I could bore you about securities fraud too. We only have 20 minutes. I won't do that. But the opportunity to use what if I have a good toolkit, it's in writing about legal stories. But also to write a love story. I mean, how cool is that? So it really was a one-in-a-lifetime experience. So now I'm going to really bore you, quote unquote, I'm trying to be facetious, about the legal story here, because it's really interesting, and it isn't what you think it is. I mean, yeah, we got this wonderful trial at the end of it. But what was this about? I mean, the reason I use the fulcrum of love talking about this case is that's what really happened. This case was stage managed to highlight love. Love that made the difference. Yeah, the law changed here. But remember, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was also repealed 3 months after the Witt case ended. Hearts moved. And they moved because of the way this story unfolded. The humorous irony of it is Margie really never understood her case. It was conducted in this arcane, maddening legalese battlefield of substantive due process. We were trying to, in some places, if you studied your history, American history, whatever, we get these tectonic plates grinding past each other. On one side is all the process of our history as we try to make change and navigate them and litigate them, and then there's just the truth. There's, what's real. And they grind past each other. That's what was happening here. By this time, it was becoming clear that America was having a change of heart, a profound change of heart of how it was going to treat gay people. We were going to give them dignity and respect that generations of them had been denied. It was just how we were going to do that. Well, these plates were scraping past each other. In 2003, Justice Kennedy, on the Supreme Court, wrote the majority decision in Lawrence v. Texas, which reversed the Supreme Court's law on, it was basically repealing the Texas sodomy law. Lawrence v. Texas involved a case where the police broke in on two men having sex. And in Lawrence, Justice Kennedy and the court rejected their earlier ruling in a Georgia case 10 years earlier where they had upheld a Georgia anti-sodomy law. There was majestic prose in Justice Kennedy's decision about giving gay people the dignity and respect they deserve and the privacy not to be intruded upon by the government in this way. So that was an opening. And Jim Loeb-Sens, her lawyer, who was connected to her by a Spokane lawyer you may know by the name of Jan Gemberling, who had worked with Jim on earlier cases. Jan and Margie had become friends walking dogs in Spokane. They'd met walking dogs. And she had this connection to the best possible lawyer she could ever get her hands on because she'd worked with him 10 years earlier on the Perry Watkins case, which was a pre-Don't Ask, Don't Tell case. So, Jan has a wonderful story in this part in the story beyond that. But Jim Loeb-Sens, in response to the phone call from Jan Gemberling, said, yeah, I have some ideas. Post-Lawrence, maybe we can take another crack. Maybe we can take a crack at Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And they did. And it was, plan A was to get a court to say that Don't Ask, Don't Tell after Lawrence was unconstitutional on its face. Plan B was to make it much more difficult to discriminate against gays. It basically involved a ruling they were proposing where each individual service member would have their day in court to see if they actually were a detriment to national security. So there was Plan A and Plan B. Now, the Ninth Circuit, I should say, I told you this was complicated. That one of the heroes in the book is the district court judge, Judge Ronald Layton, who was appointed by George W. Bush. Judge Layton threw Margie's case out the first time. because there just wasn't enough in Lawrence for him to accept it as her case as ruling that the law was unconstitutional. The Ninth Circuit reversed Judge Layton. They said, no, not so fast. I mean, at the very least, Lawrence moved the goal line. It means that, and what they did in a ruling, some call the Witt standard, was lay down the rules under which if the military was going to discharge them from being gay, they weren't going to do it just by saying you're gay, you're out. They were going to be required to show that that person was actually a detriment to unit morale and cohesion. Why am I going into this kind of detail here on Sunday morning at church? You're wondering. Well, because it mattered to Barack Obama, and it mattered to Elena Kagan. Elena Kagan, you'll now recognize as a Supreme Court justice. Barack Obama, you'll recognize as the former president. One of Obama's objectives as president was to keep a very low profile on how much he cared about the Witt case and how much he didn't want to be seen as having influenced it. He influenced it in a big way because it turns out that his Solicitor General, Elena Kagan, as much as she reviled Don't Ask, Don't Tell personally, thought it was bad, immoral, etc., did not think that Lawrence had changed the law, that the Lawrence ruling had changed the law to make Don't Ask, Don't Tell unconstitutional. She still thought as a matter of law the government was free and could make a national security argument. She wanted, as Solicitor General, to take the Witt case directly to the U.S. Supreme Court in what is known as an interlocutory appeal. Had that succeeded, had that gone to the Supreme Court, had the Supreme Court taken the case and ruled against Margie Witt, she never would have had her day in court. That week, that electrified me for what came out about her story and what went all over the world about her story would never have happened had Elena Kagan prevailed. The only person that got in her way was Barack Obama. And he still doesn't want you to know that, but it's true. But that's what happened. He essentially overruled her and working with Robert Gates and others, made it happen that Margaret Witt would get her day in court. Now, why would Robert Gates and others, not just Obama and Gates, but others in the administration want Margie Witt to have her day in court? Well, essentially, they didn't want the courts to decide the issue. As you all know, we live in a pretty messed up country right now, where half the country, I live in a large Catholic family, so I have some direct experience with this, seems to have swallowed the Kool-Aid, and at the very least, if I can say so charitably, have some very strong views that are somewhat immune to reasoning. And one of the things that the right has set up so well is that judges have taken our country away from us, that they're legislating from the bench. I mean, you say something often enough and people begin to believe it, and you have mass movements that are in part based on this. Well, they saw that as well. And Gates especially was very concerned that this not get, that Don't Ask, Don't Tell, to the extent it was going to be on the ash heap of history, that it do so not by a judge's ruling, but by Congress repealing the law. Okay, so that takes us into 2010. Margaret Witt does get her day in court. And what happens? Well, among other things, a fire captain from Spokane, Jim Schaefer, who, when he's not saving lives here in Spokane, is in places like Somalia, where he was badly injured in a rocket attack, evacuating American troops, as he did for the troops that were injured in Black Hawk Down. That's Jim Schaefer, Spokane fire chief. First witness in the Witt trial, on the stand, in his uniform, talking about what the United States government, by enforcing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and removing Margaret Witt from that unit, did to hurt that unit, did to hurt national security. And then, one after another, of the men and women of that unit came down to testify, including Ed Ribnick, who is an author, has written a book called Wounded, which is about his year on the front lines as a flight nurse in the Iraq War. Who trained Ed Ribnick? Margaret Witt. He takes the stand in his new haircut and his uniform. This goes around the world. This story gets told. It is not just... Margaret Witt by that time was not just decorated, she had a senior position in that unit. She was just not respected, she was deeply loved because of who she was. These men and women who were saving our men and women in combat loved this woman. And that's a story that will move hearts, move my heart. One of the things I forgot to mention is Margie just let me know a couple weeks ago that there's been an option on the movie rights for this book. And so we've got a couple production companies that are putting down money to bring this story to the screen. So someday, maybe, yeah, way cool. So someday we can watch this. I'm reading about this trial and reporting on it. I just want to see this movie. I want to, just for the courtroom scenes alone. I mean, it's a great love story in so many ways, but the courtroom stuff is going to be wonderful. And you're lucky I don't have time to read vast scenes from the book, because I would. I can't really help myself. This story. I don't think Margie, I mean, I did my thing in doing investigative reporting on this book. And one of the things I found is that the ACLU National didn't really want to pursue this case. They thought it would lose. And the reason they thought it would lose is because in the Lawrence case, Sandra Day O'Connor had joined the majority, but it indicated, this is a case from the state of Texas, Lawrence. It didn't involve the military at all. But she indicated, it involved the military. Maybe my vote goes the other way. Maybe I see the national security argument. So that's what they had to overcome. And ACLU Washington and Jim Lobsenz, to their credit, and Margie Witt, to her credit, took it on and made the 6 years, made that commitment of work. And in Margie's case and her family's case, deep struggle. I mentioned this morning. One of the great silver linings of this love story for me is that, and you'll see this early in the book, there was actually, before Don't Ask, Don't Tell nationally, there was a Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy in the Witt family. Margie had not come out to her parents until the day before there was going to be a press conference in Seattle announcing her suit against the Air Force. She had a friend in a car with the motor running outside the house in case that conversation went badly. To the beautiful credit of Frank and Gloria Witt, the meeting did not go badly. They embraced her, and they embraced her as a daughter they'd always loved, but now they could actually know and love on her own terms as for who she was. When the book came out, I needed to hear from two people about the book, because one of the things I did was to encourage Margie to share her struggles in the family and what that had been like. And it wasn't easy. And her mom, Gloria, does not look good in some of the early scenes. But Gloria, to her credit, redeemed herself not only through the story, but I was so proud of what we'd done together when she stood up at a reading and just told the audience how much she loved the book. And I was grateful that Judge Layton, who gave me an interview about his life story, told me he loved the book too. Just a funny story about Judge Layton. As the trial judge in Witt, again, he tossed her case on summary judgment. The day he learned that the Ninth Circuit had reversed him was like the happiest day of his life as a judge. He was elated because that meant that trial was coming back into Judge Layton's courtroom. So that was way cool. I could go on. I'm not, because I know you probably have other things to do today. I want to close. I I want to close by reading you something that really culminated. This is something that happened to me before I even met Margaret Witt, before she even asked me to work on this book. It was that day in September 2010 when Judge Layton gave his verdict, based on the testimony at trial, and formally said, I hereby order the Air Force forthwith to reinstate Margaret Witt. And then something else happened. He did something that judges don't do. It was kind of like, oh, by the way, I've got something else I want to say. And he turned to something that he'd written just that morning in his chambers. And I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to say goodbye and sit down. And thank you for coming this morning. Here it is. I've lost some water. So, yeah. So I'll start with the paragraph above. And when he finished reading his verdict, he paused and asked if there were any questions. Then his eyes went to the postscript he had written just minutes before coming into the courtroom. Major Witt, you and I are unlikely to see each other again, at least under this context, and I would like to make a couple points before you leave. One, I hope you will request reinstatement with the Air Force Reserves in the 446. Your service will provide the best evidence that open service of gays and lesbians will have no adverse effect on cohesion, morale, or readiness in this or perhaps any Air Force or military unit. Second, you have been and continue to be a central figure in a long-term, highly charged civil rights movement. The role places extraordinary stresses on you, I know. Today you have won a victory in that struggle, the depth and duration of which will be determined by other judicial officers and hopefully soon the political branches of government. You said something in the trial that resonated with me. You said that the best thing to come out of this turmoil is the reaction of your parents when you told them of your sexual orientation, their unfailing love and support for you. Notwithstanding the victory you have attained here today for yourself and others, I would submit to you that the best thing to come out of all of this tumult is still that love and support you have received from your family. You are truly blessed as a family, and I'm sure they will see you through whatever obstacles and difficulties you may encounter on the road ahead. Judge Layton's voice strained with emotion as he reached the end of his parting message. He appeared to be in tears, or at least on the verge of tears, but he made it through. Court will be in recess, he announced before he briskly departed to his right. It was 5 minutes after 2 o'clock. Thank you for coming this morning and hearing me out.
Our final hymn, please stand as you're willing and able to sing number 170 in the gray hymnal, We Are a Gentle, Angry People, number 170. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry
So our actions have an impact. And when we are blessed with love and amazing grace, may we also remain pleasantly surprised by the unexpected consequences of openness. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum, namaste, and shalom.